Thank you. Good morning. I'm amazed by the mayor. Every time I sit with him and we talk on things other than work, I realize not only does he know the history, but he is a walking history. And what he didn't tell you, that his father was a police chief for 12 years, as well as the mayor, first mayor after Orville Hubbard, who was on for about 40-some years. So he was quite the man. So our mayor is, in fact, the walking history of the city. Real quick, I'd like to say a number of things, but first of all, let me just give you a little bit about my history. I'm not going to get into the formal education, how many degrees, we all have to do those kind of things. I think the foundation for my education came at home. I grew up in a home with 2 brothers, a sister, grandparents, 2 uncles, an aunt, a mother, and a father. Just like the mayor said, my grandfather came here in 1906. He worked at the Ford Foundry for 43 years, right here in Dearborn. My dad came out of the Second World War, a sergeant major. Never talked about it, but I saw it on his resume and asked him. The uncle, the younger uncle, did, like he says, 2 vacations in Okinawa in the United States Navy as a medic. And the third uncle, the eldest brother of 3, the hardcore disciplinarian, was in the Marines in the South Pacific. And yes, my grandfather was straight Democratic. He pulled the lever, staunch UAW, AFL-CIO, don't bring anything else into the house. And I feel growing up in that environment was really the greatest foundation for my personal life. And as I sit here and look at you in awe, I want to say thank you for keeping the world safe. The military from around the world. We truly are a global community now. And I stand in awe of everything you do to keep our world safe, and I just want to say thank you for that. On your tables, you'll find a patch from the Dearborn Police Department. At the Dearborn Police, we don't say don't tarnish the badge. We say don't soil the patch. We set very high standards. I'm very proud that since I became chief, I've hired 99% of the people with at least a bachelor's degree, some have a master's degree, and I've hired a lawyer as well. We've raised the standards here in Dearborn under the direction of our mayor. It's something I'm very proud of. Another thing that I am very proud of is that we do all our internal investigations. When we have a misconduct or an allegation of corruption, we take it on ourselves. We're a 200 sworn men and women department, and we have 250 people total with our support staff. I think it's very important to the community that we set the tone quick, early, decisive, that we have a problem, we're going to clean it up ourselves. And I think that I came from a city like Detroit where we had 5 consent decrees before I left there because the community, the federal government, basically no longer had confidence in the police department or the city to clean up their own mess. So in that regard, I'm very proud of our police department, and I can tell you that we have very high standards and that we respect everyone equally. Somebody mentioned Pastor Jones. I'm going to get to him in a second. Very briefly, the mayor touched on a bunch of it. You also have, and I'm sorry we couldn't get full magazines. This is one article in our monthly, March monthly Police Chief magazine. It's a national publication, but they have a budget problem as well, so we couldn't provide you with the whole magazine. But again, they went around the country. They asked a few of us police chiefs to write an article on how we establish trust in our respective communities. And yes, they were interested in ethnic communities around the country, and we wrote about our Arab Americans. One last thing about the Arab American community here in southeastern Michigan. I want you to consider this. In southeastern Michigan, we have 350 Arab Americans. And good or bad, Bangladesh community because of the skin color, sometimes Hispanics, Italians, anything else, you get lumped into the same category. But among Arab Americans, 350,000, 75% are Christian. And that is so lost when we get attacked, when we get criticized, when people have this phobia about whatever they have a phobia for. And you have to ask yourself, right here in Michigan, if 75% of the community that's under attack is Christian, would we allow our rights to be given up? And I'm not going to get into the legal thing, I'm not a lawyer, but we all want what everyone else wants, is the pursuit of the American dream. But anyway, if we can go to the slides, I'll give you a quick overview on some of the high-profile cases we've had that have made international news. Somebody asked me before I came in this morning, how do you happen to get on the witness stand all the time? And I said, well, it's like musical chairs. When the music stops, I get served a subpoena, so I get dragged into court, and that's how that occurs as chief. We can go ahead with the slides, please. Okay, first of all, back in 2009, and again, it was unceremonial. They came and dragged us into court on a Thursday before Arab Fest started on Friday, and it was George C., and he petitioned the federal court to be allowed to bring in 90 people to walk all around the Arab Fest in 2009 and hand out pamphlets to convert people to Christianity. And the festival itself has rules, and that's all over America. They set up tables, booths, and it's for public safety. When you give things away, you have to be in a stationary position where people can come and go freely and take what you have to give, or they can choose to walk by. He petitioned the federal court, and we testified, and the judge ruled that we hit all four corners of the law, and that he could not walk up and down in the festival, but rather he had to have a stationary position. That was in 2009. Not to be outdone, Acts Apologetic 17 worked in concert with him, and they came with cameras, and the mayor alluded to the YouTube fiasco that hit the nation. That was totally contrived, it was orchestrated, and they worked in concert, and they attacked people, provoked arguments, and the rest is history. That was in 2009. 2010, we can go on. Okay, they dragged us back into court, and we'll get to apologetics in a second. They dragged us back into court, and a second federal judge here in Detroit ruled that they can't walk around, meaning George C., but he said, now you've raised the First Amendment right, so I don't have time to hear it. Put him on the external part of the festival and let him give out his pamphlets on the outside. We did that. Then we went to court again on the appeals court, and the court ruled that he can walk on the sidewalk coming in 2011. And they said that I can't project ahead of time. It would be conjecture on my part to give them a public safety plan where this may cause a problem. And they also said that if we have a problem this year, I can come back to the high court and give them the evidence. That's where we're at with Mr. George C. The Apologetics 17, they were the ones that did the YouTube that I alluded to. And again, we're being sued by them because last year, during a rainstorm, they were arrested for causing a disturbance in the middle of the festival where they gathered about 70 or 80 people in an emergency evacuation room. One was convicted, 3 were found not guilty. On appeal, the judges ruled that they can be, there was probable cause to arrest them, and the conviction was upheld. That's where we stand with that one. We can go on. And that's them with their law team. They're going to federal court to sue the city, of course. Probably one of the most trying incidents since I've been here, we had an FBI operation 2 years ago in October on the 28th, where they had a sting operation, and during that operation, one person chose not to cooperate and not to give up, pulled a handgun. Ultimately, he was killed. Imam Luqman Abdullah, he was shot by federal agents. They had some of the best trained people from around the country here. And what's lost in this case is that 5 people gave themselves up and complied and were not injured at all. It was very critical. We made a massive 300-page investigation. It was reviewed by our Attorney General here in the state of Michigan. It went to the highest levels of the United States government and the U.S. attorneys. And we went through about 19 months of controversy and a lot of upheaval from outside the country and outside the state of Michigan. But again, right here at home, because of the trust we've built up with the community, we had very little concern. There is an organization called CARE, and they did carry the charge against the police and against the FBI, and they thought there was a mass conspiracy to cover up. But we stand by our investigation, and the unfortunate part is that profoundly regrettable. There's nothing you can do to right a situation where human life is lost. But again, it didn't cause the upheaval here in the community like it did around the country and around the world, because people of this community trust us. Next. Pastor Jones. Pastor Jones, as most of you will recall, last 9/11 commemoration, he went to New York with the desire to burn the Quran. The President, I think Defense Secretary Gates, Hillary Clinton, General Petraeus, a number of other high-profile people around the world said it's not a good idea, don't do it. It'll put Americans' lives at jeopardy all over. And at that time, he promised not to do it. Some months later, he held a trial down in Gainesville, Florida, found the Quran guilty of atrocities and burnt the Quran. And you know what happened overseas. He takes no account for that. He says, I didn't do it, they did it, and then he wants to come here. We had a Good Friday service. We have this area with 5 churches and a mosque, Altar Road, and we met with the pastors and the imam, and it was decided that they wanted to hold their services. We said, don't cancel them on our account. I can tell you that thousands of people put in for a petition to show up at that site. We ended up talking more people out of filing a petition, and ultimately we denied 5 formal petitions, and we said nobody can go up there, the property just won't hold it. The Wayne County prosecutor filed a peace bond against him, and a Dearborn jury found that there was a likelihood he would cause a disturbance by his appearance at the mosque. It was more likely, preponderance of the evidence, more likely that he would cause a disturbance versus not, and they ruled in the county's favor. And I, for one, was glad about that. And the judges of sentence put a $1 bond on him because he has to put a dollar amount, which is equal to a personal. And he said, for the next 3 years, you and Mr. Sapp cannot go to the mosque. And they're still fighting us in the high courts now on that. And he came back another time. We had a small breach of the peace in front of City Hall, but in quick fashion we shut it down. And he's promising to come back on the Father's Day weekend, and we'll be here. But that's where we are with Pastor Jones. And I know there's a lot of questions on him, but that's all I can say really about Pastor Jones. Next. That's his associate. You know, no good deed goes unpunished. I met with them after the jury was picked on that Thursday, and I had planned to meet with them on their arrival to court to see what we could do to facilitate their safety. I met with them anyway. The jury was seated. And I happened to they mentioned the Constitution several times to me, and I have these little pocket constitutions on the desk. So I said, if you would accept it, I would give you each a copy of the Constitution, because, you know, we believe strongly in the Constitution here. And both of them admitted that they had never seen one. They graciously accepted it. And no good deed goes unpunished, because the next day, in the closing arguments, Mr. Sapp reads the First Amendment in his closing argument in the little book I gave him. And I'm okay with that. But what he did read, he read right by the first part of the sentence, which addresses the freedom of religion. And he just read through it, went through that comma real quick, and then he got on to the right to assemble and free speech. So I guess, you know, maybe there's more academics to be done with those two gentlemen, but he read right by it. But no good deed goes unpunished. Okay, next. This is the gentleman that was here just 2 weekends ago, the Order of the Dragon, Frank Fiorello. He met with our religious community that a few Saturdays, well, it was actually on Easter Saturday, because he chose not to protest. He said he forgot it was Good Friday, and he was impressed with the people that gave him the time on that Saturday, and it kind of quelled his fears of what he thought was going on here. But 2 Saturdays ago, he showed up with 3 people and had a free speech demonstration in front of the City Hall. Rather benign. There was 12 counter-protesters, and it was pretty benign. But he's not a problem at all. Next. Okay, you know, when we talk about community trust, the community has to, right across the board, they say, what do you do in one neighborhood versus the other? We do the same in every neighborhood. People want crime reduced. It doesn't matter if I'm on the east side, I'm on the west side, I'm on the north side. People complain about speeders in their neighborhoods. They want safe communities, they want police service. When they dial 911, they want a response. I think what's critical in the ethnic communities to get them to trust you and call when they need something. I think that we've turned the corner. There's a couple of things that I see. When I first got here, our domestic violence, particularly in the East End, was real low as far as reporting goes. And we had a couple of our social agencies that were meeting with us real vigorously to try to get the imams and others to come together and change this cultural trait where the father or the man is the head of the household, and you try to work out these kind of events with your family, and it's not criminal. I can tell you that we've made great inroads. At our last domestic violence annual dinner, there's a table of imams there. They support the reporting of domestic violence, and I think it just goes to show that with understanding and some persuasion, how we can change a community's outlook. Now we have safer homes because we've taken that step. You may have heard about a gentleman named Richard Stockham that drove from California with a car full of high-level firecrackers and explosives to go to the mosque here and do a real big bang. Well, again, it was a businessman, Arab American, that found out about this and had enough trust in the police to call us immediately. I'm not sure that that would have happened before. I would hope that it would, but sometimes people don't trust the police. They don't call. Again, it's another indication that we've turned the corner on many of these things. We made it to the mosque. There was 800 people there for a memorial service. We got him out in the parking lot, putting on his mask and getting ready to do whatever he was going to do. He's in a prison awaiting trial, zero bond. He's been convicted on a number of things, including threatening the president a couple of times. And he's a well-decorated, highly accomplished Vietnam vet. So I have a special spot in my heart for service people, but you can see the danger there. Again, he's in jail and he was reported. We're looking at 7% reduction in crime. I can tell you that right across the board, our city is reducing crime 7%. And we've done very intrusive, high-level police work in the communities. And again, if the community didn't trust us, we couldn't get it done. We've sent out a Nexo message. About 3,000 people have signed up, and I thought that was very innovative. Well, we let them know by phone or on their emails of pending crime patterns, traffic concerns. We had, at Fortson High School, we had a chlorine spill a few weeks ago, and we notified the parents immediately, and they came and got their children. And again, that further builds the trust. We have an intern program at our police station where we've hired 5 people from the community. That's become a national model. I'm very proud of it, and it comes at a time when we have severe budget cuts to make. And those kind of programs, because they're the last in the door, are the first ones targeted by people to say, why cut me, cut those. But we just have to stand firm and do what's right. And we're not going to eliminate at all costs our intern program. We also have a Police Explorer program that brings in young people from all segments of the community and from every high school. And again, it further builds the trust. And last year during Ramadan, we looked at our crime patterns, and in the South End, we had an uptick in malicious destruction of property and assaults during the Ramadan season. We met with the community leaders there, and we said, how do you explain this? They said, it's simple. While we're in prayer late, and then when we go to dinner, the young people walk the streets till 4 o'clock in the morning. And that's where your crime is taking a big upward tick. 5 men from the community, along with 5 of our officers, partnered up. And every time we saw a curfew violator, the first time we took them home to their parents with a warning letter. Second time we wrote them a ticket. And I'm here to tell you that crime went down 35% during Ramadan in the East End. And again, we had the community work with us, they trusted us, and they pushed it. So those all are very encouraging to me. I served as the first Homeland Security Coordinator for the City of Detroit, Department of Police. And I tell people, if you're waiting for bin Laden to come through the Windsor Tunnel, you think that's going to be our war on terrorism, you can forget it. And based on where we found him lately, I guess that was a pretty accurate statement. I said, our job is far more complex than that. We have to gain the community support, community trust, and we have to have indicators that the community feel comfortable in coming forward. What the mayor said about they don't want to put their loved ones in jail, that is the biggest obstacle right now. We work with the school counselors. You look at the underpants bomber. His own father went to some pretty high-level people and tried to report that guy. But yet, nothing happened. Not enough happened. Well, nothing happened until after the man landed here in Metro Detroit. So, you know, it's not that people won't report. On both ends, we have to develop a communication system, and we have to develop a trust that will serve the community and serve the world. And I think that's our greatest challenge right now. You can look at the 350,000 Arab Americans here in Detroit, right post 9/11, when they had that roundup of those student visas, 18 to 23-year-old. The U.S. attorney came to us and they said, we got 5,000 people we'd like to talk to. We ended up sending out letters. All but 3 answered the letters. And it was on CNN. They said, oh yeah, murder capital of the world, Detroit, they're sending terrorist letters hoping they're going to turn themselves in. Well, guess what? They're not all terrorists. Most of them did turn themselves in. All but 3. And so, again, the communication, the reach out, and the trust is so essential. And I'm not one that wants to treat people as I want to be treated. I want to find out what they need to be, how they need to be treated. I want to treat them the way they need to be treated. And it's not always the same. And with that, I just want to again say thank you for being here. I'm very proud and stand in awe of all that you do. Mayor, do we have time for questions? Okay, if I can get my questions, or while I'm up here, again, thank you, and you can get some questions.
Thank you for your service to this community, but really thank you for your thoughts and insight into your leadership in this community. I think one of the themes that you really brought out here are going to really be applicable as we take a look at our discussion throughout this week of communication, and outreach, and building that trust within the community. And that's going to go a long ways in working one community at a time. Thank you for being here today with us and for what you do. And on behalf of Adam Olson, who is so proud, and Solomon College members here, thank you for your presentation today.
Thank you. It's a privilege. Thank you. You know, if I could add also, as chief, I serve on just about every human rights and civil rights committee here in the state of Michigan and on a national basis when the time allows. And I think that's very important because there's sounding boards from another avenue. And not only do we just go to these meetings, but we also try to facilitate our department policy and procedure when we find things that are applicable. So, you know, it's a complex job. I didn't want to oversimplify it. I have a great staff. I got 2 commanders, Commander Teefy, Commander Solomon in the back. If there's anything we can do while you're here, please don't hesitate to call. Let us know. So thank you.